What's good, everyone? Welcome back to this edition of the Super Stream. Today is February 11th, 2022. And in this video, as we do in every video, we'll examine the world through a very unique lens. That is, the lens of numerology, of which an important component is the language of Gematria, or Gematria, which we're looking at the most basic ciphers for here on your screen. Just the simple alphabetic order, numbering the alphabet A through Z, 1 through 26, along with our reduction methods. And we'll dive into a couple of these other ciphers in a minute, but the clear thing to understand about every one of these videos is how Gematria connects to dates on the calendar. And this is through two ways, both date duration measurements and date numerologies. So let's see an example of how this works. We'll look at some synchronicity in the media here from this past week. And one of the stories we're going to start with is this story about Caleb Kennedy, an American Idol contestant who dropped out of the contest last year. Just this past week, he was arrested and charged with a felony DUI after this car crash. Now, with the last name Kennedy, you can rest assured that there's probably a strong numeric riddle connected to John F. Kennedy in this story, as there very much is, and we'll examine that. This news story was just a few days after a pro wrestler named Brian Kendrick was kicked out of AEW because of past comments he made regarding conspiracy theories. And notice how Brian Kendrick's birthday is May 29th, which is the same birthday as John F. Kennedy, whose death spawned the term conspiracy theory back in the 1960s. We'll also look at how the death of actor Moses J. Moseley is connected to a NASCAR race from this past weekend. Remember, we had the Busch Light Clash at the Coliseum held in Los Angeles 1 week before the Super Bowl in the same area. So we'll look at how the death of this man in a car in the city of Stockbridge is connected to this year's stock car race in Los Angeles. Also, a really strong synchronicity with Derek Jeter in the news this week. It all began when one of Jeter's best friends, former Yankee teammate Gerald Williams, died of cancer at the age of 55. Just 1 day later, we learned about the death of Jeremy Giambi, who is most known in his career for a play involving Derek Jeter. Anyone who's a big baseball fan here will remember this: Derek Jeter flipping the ball to home plate during the 2001 playoffs. And the man that was tagged out on that play was Jeremy Giambi, who again died just 1 day after Gerald Williams. All right, so let's get started. We'll take a look at this story involving Caleb Kennedy and the undeniable connections here to John F. Kennedy in this story. So as it goes, Caleb Kennedy got in a DUI accident running into a shop in North Carolina, or I believe South Carolina, and a man was hit and killed. So the photos from this site, very strange, but I'll let you do the digging. This happened on February 8th of 2022. This was a span of 111 days after Caleb's birthday, which is October 21st. It was also a span of 111 days before the birthday of John F. Kennedy, which again is May 29th. Using the reverse alphabetic order, where Z is 1 through A is 26, the name Kennedy equals 111. Now, in the standard alphabetic order, the name Kennedy equals 78. Caleb Kennedy's crash fell 78 days after the anniversary of the JFK assassination. On the date of this accident, Caleb Kennedy was 207 months old. In numerology, this represents the number 27 with the 0 dropped. That's the ordinal value of JFK. JFK was killed in the city of Dallas, Texas, which has Jewish or Latin gematria of 632. And on the date of his crash, Caleb was a span of exactly 6,320 days old. Now, Caleb Kennedy is an interesting character because back in May of last year, he dropped out of American Idol after a video surfaced of him when he was like 12 years old. And I don't really understand the reference, but it has to do with a show called Stranger Things. And he was standing next to a friend in a KKK hood or something, and for whatever reason, he had to apologize, and there was this big hoopla about it. Now, that video made the news on the date May 12th, which is written as 12/5 internationally. This syncs up with the ordinal value of John Kennedy, whose name sums to 125. With the alphabetic order flipped around, the name John Kennedy equals 172. And this news story fell a span of 172 days after the anniversary of the JFK assassination. In reduction, John Kennedy equals 53, and this same amount of time is also a span of 5 months and 3 weeks. That news story also fell 162 days before Caleb Kennedy's birthday. That's the Sumerian value of JFK. His birthday last year was his 17th birthday, and that's how old he is now on the date of his car accident. This stands out because that news story was also 17 days before JFK's birthday. And in the language of Gematria, in the standard reduction method, the name John Fitzgerald Kennedy equals 107, which of course represents the number 17 in numerology. JFK was assassinated on a date with 52 numerology, which was the 326th day of the year. Caleb's crash happened on another date with 52 numerology, which was the date that leaves 326 days on the calendar. And in Gematria, President John F. Kennedy sums to 326. John Kennedy was shot at 12:30 p.m. His death spawned conspiracy theories. And notice how the word conspiracy equals 123, just like the time he was shot. Caleb Kennedy's crash occurred at 12:30 p.m. per the news articles, which is the exact same time that JFK was assassinated. Now, we do see 7:21 as the time. That was when he was arrested. The crash itself was at 12:30. And the man who died was even 54 years old. And notice how this connects to both JFK and Kennedy in Gematria. You guys may recall this was a big number in the Vegas shooting. Vegas equals 54, so does Paddock, which was the name of the Vegas shooter. He was from Clinton, Iowa, which equals 54. His full name even connects to 54. And that festival that he shot at started 54 days before the 54th anniversary of the JFK shooting. Now, I point out this JFK shooting the Vegas shooting, because that was on the date October 1st, and it was at a country music festival. Well, Caleb Kennedy is a country musician playing his guitar on American Idol. And look at the gematria of his name, 101 ordinal, just like the date October 1st, the date of the Vegas shooting. His name also equals 223 in reverse. And this was another big number in the Vegas shooting because this casino, which equals 223, turned exactly 223 months old on the night of the shooting. Las Vegas, Nevada sums to 223 in our Hebrew Gematria cipher. Again, the man was 17 years old, Caleb. This connects to JFK. The 17th prime is 59, and both John F. Kennedy and Jack Kennedy also equal 59. This number 107 is also the 28th prime number. And what was the date of Caleb's crash? February 8th, written 2/8 on the calendar. So this brings us to professional wrestling, where we had a really strange story come out. Now, former WWE wrestler Brian Kendrick recently asked for his release from his WWE contract so he could come over to AEW. And he was scheduled to have a match in AEW, and it wasn't just a small random match. He was actually scheduled to go up against Jon Moxley, who is the former champion in AEW. However, the day of the match, everything got canceled, and Brian Kendrick was released from AEW. And why such the sudden thing? Well, it's because of comments he made on Twitter in the past where he said he believes in some conspiracy theories, like maybe the Sandy Hook shooting was hoaxed or 9/11 had hologram planes or something. And, a couple of the conspiracies he mentioned were actually a little bit out there for me, but, whatever. Like, we're allowed to question these things. This is America. We have freedom of speech. And just to remind people, the Vietnam War, where the United States sent 3 million men overseas, many of whom died, many others had their lives ruined. Remember, this was all done on a lie. The second Gulf of Tonkin incident was used to stir up support for the war, but later on we found out that it was actually fabricated. And of course, it wasn't just a one-off thing. Think about how in 2003, America went to war in Iraq because they supposedly had weapons of mass destruction, only to later discover that, no, we were wrong about that all along. It didn't happen. They had nothing to do with 9/11. So this is the country we live in. Just pure BS coming from the government, but we're expected to shut up and believe it. And we're not even allowed to question these things. What's so alarming about this story is that it's not like Tony Khan asked Brian Kendrick about his beliefs and asked him to clarify if he still thought these things. And of course, it should still be okay if he did, but that didn't even happen. They went immediately into calling him a crazy nut job and said that he's not allowed to have a job here, which is pretty extreme compared to the things that we've been dealing with over the past couple decades, how things have been. Now, I've done work on the posts or in the past about how the name John F. Kennedy and the date of birth, the date he died, are all connected to the gematria of conspiracy. It's almost as if there's some sort of force that wanted people to start believing conspiracy theories and start digging into them after this all happened. And as I mentioned, Brian Kendrick has the same birthday as JFK, May 29th. Now, on the date of this news story, Brian Kendrick was 15,590 days old, which is very close to the number 159, which is Brian David Kendrick in the language of Gematria. Notice how Kendrick was born exactly 62 years to the day after John F. Kennedy. Well, the 62nd prime number is 293, which is the Jewish gematria of Brian Kendrick. Now, the Jewish or Latin cipher is also known as Agrippa's key, and this is a very, very significant cipher based on the original Latin alphabetic order. You'll notice the characters at the end of this cipher are the ones that were not added until the English alphabet. And I strongly believe that this cipher is more significant than any of us can actually really comprehend, but that's a deep dive for another day. A little bit more about this story with Kendrick. He was let go on February 2nd, the 33rd day of the year, which had 46 numerology. Both of these numbers further connecting to Kennedy and John Kennedy. So Kendrick's opponent for that night was supposed to be Jon Moxley. And notice Jon Moxley's primary birth numerology of 123. Remember, John Kennedy was shot at 12:30? The word conspiracy equals 123 in the alphabetic order. Conspiracy also equals 57 in reverse, and this match was 57 days after Moseley's birthday. As far as the number 51, the name Kendrick equals 51. The name Moxley, which is his ring name that he goes by, this sums to 94. And 94 is the only number that has perfect matching gematria with the word conspiracy. 147, 123, 57, and 51. Brian Kendrick also equals 119 in gematria. This was all 116 days before he and JFK's birthday, another number connecting to John Fitzgerald Kennedy. So this is the culture that they're trying to build, everyone. Don't question anything. Don't believe anything crazy, because if you do, you're going to be outcast from society. And you already see this with the VAXX and a lot of the policies in some of the most draconian of the states we have. Trying to keep people apart from one another, but most importantly, keep people divided. As primarily, they don't want people coming together and realizing how bad they're being screwed by the government. So let's explore another strong connection in the media from this past week. Now, as we know, the Super Bowl is coming up in 2 days, and it's being hosted in Los Angeles for the first time in a very long time. And it just so happens that one weekend before the Super Bowl, we had a new type of NASCAR race. At the Los Angeles Coliseum, they built a quarter-mile oval track, which I'm not sure if NASCAR's ever done a quarter mile before. They probably have. But this is not something you typically see. I know Bristol is a half mile. And this is a really unique race. I don't think the cars ever got over like 85 miles an hour. It was a unique enough of a race that even I tuned in just to see what it looked like. And I was about as bored by it as any other NASCAR race. But I want to take a look at the numerology of this special event and how it connects to the death of this actor from the show The Walking Dead. So the clash at the Coliseum was held on February 6th, or 206. And the date February 6th connects to the gematria of Los Angeles Coliseum, which sums to 206 in the alphabetic order. Now, 206 is a number of sacrifice in our Jewish method. So any event connected to 206 like this, you're going to see an associated sacrifice in the media. Furthermore, February 6th is the 37th day of the year, leaving 328 days in the calendar. Los Angeles equals 37 and 328. So a prime day for a big event there. In ordinal, NASCAR sums to 56. And this is very important because next weekend in Los Angeles, they're hosting Super Bowl 56. The winner of this race at the Coliseum was named Joey, or Joseph. Now, for those of you who have been following this channel for a while, you know that as far back as July, which happens to be around the same time that NFL training camps were starting, I was following a very significant riddle with the name Joseph in the media. And I did like 4 or 5 videos, one after the other, talking about various celebrities named Joseph who were passing away or had significant ties in the news. And I just wonder, going back, if that was a clue for Joseph Burrow and this big riddle that's connecting him in the year of the Tiger to the Bengals entering the Super Bowl. So the name of the winner of the race, very similar to the name of the potential winner of the Super Bowl next weekend, and I do think it'll be the Bengals. But check this out. The name Joseph Thomas Logano in the language of Gematria sums to 213. And think about next week's Super Bowl being held on 2/13, February 13th, in the 213 area code there in Los Angeles. The name Joseph Lee Burrow sums to 213 in reverse gematria. And what I found really interesting about this 213 connection is that after the race was over, they interviewed Logano, and we learned that his wife was giving birth to their third child. And sure enough, 2 days later, she gave birth. And think about, 213. They had 2 kids, they're adding 1. Now they have 3. Joseph Burrow was born 6 years and 200 days after Joey Logano. The name Joseph Burrow equals 62 in Gematria. On top of that, the 200th prime number is 1223, which is the name Joey Logano in Jewish. In that same Jewish cipher, the name Burrow equals 1312, and Burrow was 1,312 weeks old on the date of this race. Logano drives the number 22 car, and I thought that was interesting because this was the first race of the 22 season, and the Clash at the Coliseum, while this was the first time it was held at the Coliseum, the Clash is a race that's been held since the year 79. And 79 is the 22nd prime number. Logano driving the number 22. So, once again, this was the major stock car race for the exhibition season. And in the city of Stockbridge, an actor named Moses Moseley died in his car. And I couldn't believe how well this man's name connects to Joey Logano. Okay, they did it again. So Wikipedia just changed this guy's birthday. I mean, I'm not frustrated because this happens all the time, but you got to wonder what the hell's going on here. So earlier this week, according to every source I looked at, Moses Moseley was born on December 23rd, the date written 1223. And remember, this is the name Joey Logano in Jewish Gematria, 1223. Well, now this doesn't work because he's got a new birthday. I guess he was born on the 24th. This is ridiculous. But what about the full name, Joseph Thomas Logano? Notice how this sums to 126 in that same cipher. And they're saying that Moses Moseley died on 126. Now this date, 1223, notice how he was born in the same year as Joey Logano. Their birthdays are separated by exactly 213 days, which again is the ordinal value of Joseph Thomas Logano. And obviously, here we have a white stock car driver, Moses Moseley, a black man. Think about how the word racism equals 213. In the Super Bowl, again, 213 in the 213 area code. These men born 213 days apart. But think about how racism connects to what's going on in the NFL right now. So let's take a step back and think about this name, Moses J. Moseley. The car that Joey Logano had to pass in the Clash at the Coliseum was the M&M car, driven by Kyle Busch. I mean, think about this. The Busch Light Clash at the Coliseum, and of course, Kyle Busch has to be a significant part of this. And the initial, too, J. It's not that far off from the symbol, and, the ampersand. So M&M's MJM. Again, use your brain yourself to figure out if this is relevant. What I wanted to point out about this Kyle Busch drives for Joe Gibbs Racing. So let's take a look at Kyle Busch quick. He drives for Joe Gibbs Racing, which is owned by former NFL coach Joe Gibbs, a 3-time Super Bowl champion. And Joe Gibbs' team was the Redskins. And remember, just this past week, the Redskins officially changed their name to the Commanders, which I hope everyone calls the Commies. And that same week, former NFL coach Brian Flores filed a racism lawsuit against the NFL. And we'll talk more about that in a little bit. Now, it wasn't just the Busch Light clash at the Coliseum that had some interesting numbers things going on with it. So when I first pulled up the race to check it out, I actually accidentally pulled up the iRacing event. And I'm just learning about this myself, so for those of you who don't know, there's this big esports sim league that runs alongside NASCAR. And I think for like every real NASCAR race, they have this iRacing simulation race where people drive from their houses in an online competition. So on February 1st, they held the simulation for the clash at the Coliseum. And I thought it was really strange because the winner of the race, it just so happened that he changed his number for the race. And he changed his number to 95 because of the movie Cars, where the car Lightning wears number 95. And that racer's name was Casey Kirwan, which has the same gematria as 95. And I was like, no way. Even video games? A video game race? We're talking about numerology here as well. Now, the only other number to have gematria of 129 is 99. And Casey Kirwan, the winner of the race, was born in the year 99. And the Busch Light clash at the Coliseum was held when the Coliseum was 99 years old. And this is a number that connects to the NFL. Consider how the two quarterbacks, Burrow and Stafford, both wear number 9. This past year's NFL season even started on September 9th, written 9-9. And Los Angeles is, of course, in California, who celebrates their date of statehood on September 9th, written 9/9. Of course, LA and 13, both summing, connecting to 99. And I noticed that Casey Kirwan, his age, the Coliseum's age at the time that he was born, 76 years, 206 days. Kirwan 76, the Clash 76, Los Angeles Coliseum 206. And after the race, he was talking about how badly he wanted to win this race ever since he even heard of the idea of it. And he's like, I don't even know why I wanted to win so bad. Well, could it be his numeric connections have something to do with that? Or was the video game race rigged? I mean, you guys tell me. I'm just here sharing the numbers. Moving on to Major League Baseball. We had a couple of big news stories involving the deaths of former major leaguers, both of whom are strongly connected to Derek Jeter. So, let's start with the death of Jeremy Giambi, which happened on February 9th, 2 days ago. It's being reported today that Giambi died of a self-inflicted gunshot wound at his parents' house at the age of 47. Now, let's think about what's happening in baseball right now. Of course, there's a big lockout going on, so there's no guarantee even that there's going to be a baseball season this year. Every year, there's also a class of inductees elected into the Baseball Hall of Fame. And just a couple weeks ago, in late January, there was a big news story because two of the most legendary players to ever strap on cleats, Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens, both missed out on the Hall of Fame in their last year of eligibility. And really, the biggest reason that they missed out on the Hall of Fame is because of their appearance in the Mitchell Report. Remember this? Back in 2007, former Senate Majority Leader George Mitchell published a report which named almost 100 major leaguers who were involved in doping or a steroid scandal. And two of the names on that list were Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens. And it's their involvement in this scandal that's pretty much responsible for them being out of the Hall of Fame. Well, two other major leaguers on that list were Jeremy Giambi and his more well-known brother, Jason Giambi. So just a couple weeks after this news, where these players, missing their last year, we get the death of Jeremy Giambi, and this is all connected to the Mitchell Report. Now again, what is Jeremy Giambi best known for? Well, as I mentioned earlier, it's the flip play. Derek Jeter making this legendary play in 2001, nabbing Jeremy Giambi at the plate by just a fraction of an inch. And again, this is all one day after Gerald Williams died, who Derek Jeter said was his best friend, or one of his best friends. So let's look at the numbers here. We start with the name Jeremy Giambi, which equals 207. Notice how the Mitchell Report sums to 207 in the language of Gematria as well. And the Mitchell Report was released in the year 2007. The name Giambi equals 40. We had the Giambi brothers both on that report. Jeremy Giambi died on the 40th day of the year. The 40th prime number is 173. And this is a pretty important number that connects to the crucifixion code. So there's a verse in the Bible here in the New Testament, and in it, Jesus cries from the cross, Eli, Eli, which means, my God, my God. Now, the word Eli can be flipped upside down for the number 173, and we're going to talk about how the Christ crucifixion code is connected to this death as well. It's very big here. So at the time he died, look how old Jeremy Giambi was. He died at the age of 17,300 days, including the end date. It was also 173 days after the birthday of George Mitchell, who was the man who was asked to publish this report. From the publishing of the Mitchell Report to Giambi's death, it was 5,173 days. These are the same four digits found in the numerology of the date he died. But this number connects to Jeremy's brother Jason, the more well-known Giambi, whose full name, Jason Gilbert Giambi, equals 173. The Mitchell Report was published at the directive of the commissioner at the time, Bud Selig, whose full name, Alan Huber Bud Selig, sums to 173. Jeremy Giambi was born on a date with primary numerology of 132. This is the reduction value of performance-enhancing drugs and performance-enhancing substances, which the Mitchell Report exposed usage of. Jeremy died 132 days after his birthday, when his brother Jason was 51 years, 32 days old. On the date the Mitchell Report was released, Mitchell was 74 years, 115 days old. This connects us to the heavily Masonic part of this riddle. Consider how the words Masonic and killing both equal 74 and 115. But perhaps the more important number here is 74, as on the left side of your screen, you can see this is the number that connects to Jesus, the King or Messiah, who died on a cross per the Gospels, which is told in parables. And of course, the words simple and English and Gematria, all summing to 74 in ordinal. The Mitchell Report was published exactly 74 months after the Derek Jeter flip play to tag out Jeremy Giambi. Giambi was 74 days after his birthday when the Mitchell Report was released. And check out how he was born in the year 74. Just like Derek Jeter, also born in 74. Notice how Jeremy was 33 years old when the Mitchell Report came out. Not only was he born on a date with reduced numerology of 33, but the date he died also had numerology of 33. And consider how we're told that Jesus was 33 when he died. Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, 303, said to be 33 during the crucifixion of Jesus Christ, which also equals 303. On the date his brother died, Jason Giambi was 18,660 days old. And consider how 33 is also the highest degree of masonry. In our standard reduction gematria cipher, masonry sums to 33. In Jewish gematria, ancient accepted Scottish rite of Freemasonry equals 1866, which is the number that connects to Giambi's age when his brother died. This same phrase sums to 632, which is the English value of Jason Gilbert Giambi, his full name. Jeremy died on the date that leaves 325 days in the year, which is Scottish rite of Freemasonry in ordinal. The name Mitchell, also 325. On the date of the flip play, Jeremy Giambi was 1,410 weeks old. This number connects to his name, Jeremy Dean Giambi, 141 ordinal. In Jewish gematria, the word baseball sums to 141. And if you rearrange these same digits, you get the value of Major League Baseball, 1140 in that same cipher. And when Jeremy Giambi was found dead, look at the time on the clock. 11:40 a.m. That big Major League Baseball number. Also consider how Balco equals 33. I missed that. But Balco was the lab that was investigated during that Mitchell report. Also, Jason Giambi's full name in Jewish gematria sums to 1,062. And this is that big baseball number, right? They play 162 games per season. Baseball equals 162, so does Major League Baseball. Also, Jeremy Giambi was born on 9/30, which is another significant number to this Jesus crucifixion code. It's believed that Jesus was crucified on April 3rd, the 93rd day of the year, from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. The New Testament begins with the 930th verse of the Bible. Chapter. 930, the age that Adam lives to. In Christianity, 930. God's son, 93. A little bit more about the Mitchell Report and its release date of 12/13/2007. This was a date with numerology of 52 and 34. The 52nd prime number is 239, which is the reverse value of George Mitchell. Meanwhile, the 34th prime number is 139, which is the ordinal value of George Mitchell. Jeremy also died exactly 739 weeks after the Mitchell report was published. Those are the same 4 digits in the Mitchell report using square numbers. Maybe a little bit of a stretch. I don't think so, but there's always more, as we say. So again, this was all on February 9th, which was one day after the death of former MLB player Gerald Williams. Now, the death of Gerald Williams is an extreme 666 riddle, okay? Now, if you look at Gerald Williams' history, you'll see he played for both teams in New York. So he had 2 stints with the Yankees and then 1 with the Mets. And in Gematria, the state of New York is one of just a handful to have Gematria of 666. Gerald Williams is one of only 3 Yankees in history to have 6 hits in a game. And he did it in the year 1996, which ends in a 6 and also has 2 upside-down 6s. But I want you to see how this connects to his full name. Gerald Floyd Williams. Notice how his name sums to 90 and 99, with the S exception. If you flip these digits upside down, they look a lot like 666. 666 is the 36th triangular number. It's also made up of 3 6s, and his full name equals 306 in reverse. Now, if you add 6 plus 6 plus 6, you get a sum of 18, and the name Gerald Floyd Williams equals 108. He was even born on the date written, 108, the 10th of August. If he died one day later, he would have been exactly a span of 666 months old. And see how he was even born in the year 66? He was drafted 366th in the Major League Baseball draft. But why did he die one day shy of turning 666 months old? I believe the answer lies in Jewish Gematria. See how Gerald Williams equals 1196? That's just 1 digit shy of 666, which is 1197, dying just 1 day shy of being 666 months old. The date he died even had numerology of 52 and 16, which is the Gematria of 6. It also stood out that Gerald Williams went to Grambling State, whose mascot is the Tigers. The Grambling State Tigers here. And consider again, we just entered the year of the Tiger back on February 1st. So we looked at how Gerald Floyd Williams equals 108 and how he was born on the date 108. Well, 108 is a very significant number to baseball. Not only does baseball equal 108 in Gematria, but there are 108 double stitches on a baseball. And of course, there's 18 players active in a game at any time. Gerald died at the age of 55, which equals 108 in the alphabetic order. Do you guys remember how important the Cubs World Series victory was, right? And that was a 108-year curse. The Cubs championship was in 2016, which is a lot like 216, which is 6 times 6 times 6. And it turns out that Gerald Williams died a span of exactly 275 weeks after the Cubs won the World Series. And the date of that game even connects to 666 in reverse, as it was the 2nd of November, or 2/11. Williams' full name is really close to 666 in other ciphers as well, but What are the odds? And just to show you here, here's Derek Jeter saying Gerald Williams was one of his best friends. Wild stuff. Notice how Derek Sanderson Jeter, his full name, also has this reverse value of 303. We talked about this number a lot in the death of Jeremy Giambi, 33 coded all over. Also, Giambi died at 11:40 a.m. Derek Sanderson Jeter, summing to 114 in reverse reduction. Derek Jeter is 47 years old. That was the same age that Giambi died at, 47. Notice how the name Derek Jeter equals 47, so does the word suicide. Now, earlier, I mentioned how Joey Logano winning that race seems to be connected to the birth of his daughter, right, having their third child. Well, I noticed that Derek Jeter had a child not that long ago himself. Back on December 2nd, he and his wife welcomed their third child, River Rose Jeter. And I thought the name River was interesting because think about Derek Jeter's longtime teammate, Mariano Rivera, right? Rivera, River. I wonder if he took Mariano's name into account when he did that. If you measure from the birth of his daughter to the death of Jeremy Giambi, you get a span of 70 days, and that's the word suicide in ordinal. In reverse, suicide is 119, and it was 119 days after the anniversary of the flip play. So, pretty wild stuff there, guys. If I might say so myself. All right, so I'm going to take a quick break. You guys chat amongst yourselves for a bit. I'll be right back, and we'll decode some more news stories. I'll take a look at the chat. If anybody's got questions or comments, we'll do that as well. But, yeah, I'll be back very shortly. All right, guys, sorry for that little delay. Take care of a little business here on my end, but I'm back. And shout out to everybody who jumped in on the chat today for this short notice edition of the Super Stream. Yeah, I'd like to hear who you guys have for the Super Bowl and maybe why you have that team for the Super Bowl. We've been talking primarily about Joe Burrow and the year of the Tiger. Going up against the Rams with Stafford, which of course sounds a lot like Saturn. Saturn summing to 56 in Hebrew, Super Bowl 56. And historically, Rams get sacrificed during Saturnalia. So there's a strong riddle suggesting that the Rams could lose to the Bengals. I haven't myself dove too deep in the last couple weeks. I did enough work on the NFL to drive myself nuts, to be honest. And, anybody putting money on my pick would be silly at this point. But I do think the Riddle is stronger for the Bengals. And according to the radio anyway, they were reporting that something like 59 or 60% of the money in Vegas was going down on the Rams. Now, I don't know how accurate those numbers are, if they're ever misreported intentionally or whatever, but to me that would suggest that, yeah, the Bengals are still on track to be the winners. And, of course, we always like the theories about what's going on with Gematria. Of course, we talk about riddles and rituals, things that the mainstream media is doing to lie to us and warp our minds. But, again, I believe they're doing this because of their understanding of this matrix, so to speak, that we live in a creation, a mathematical vortex, and all of our lives are coded by the numbers. I think a lot of the things we look at, whether it's, people dying of disease or suicide, things like that, I really do believe a lot of it is organic. And you don't hear me opine too often on what's organic and what's not because I simply don't know. And in a story like Jeremy Giambi, yeah, it could be a situation where the guy was murdered, but if he was murdered, he was in his parents' home. Like, wouldn't his parents know something? So maybe it's a hoax. I don't know. YouTube's closed captioning is very good. I'll give you that. I've downloaded the transcripts of my videos before, just out of curiosity to see how many times I said a word or something, and yeah, I was very happy to see how accurate it was. Moving on here, I wanted to talk a little bit more about some things that happened this past week. And we can do a little bit of a dive into the NFL while we're at it. So last week we talked about Joe Burrow and his connections to Tom Brady going into the Super Bowl. Now, what I missed, however, and never really bothered looking into, was this huge riddle connecting Joe Burrow and his time at LSU to the Super Bowl. So a lot of you guys know this, but for those who didn't, think about this. Joe Burrow of the Cincinnati Bengals went to college at LSU, but prior to his time at LSU, he was on the team at Ohio State. The day he transferred from Ohio State to LSU, May 20th, 2018, was the same exact date that the only Heisman Trophy winner in LSU history passed away. That man was Billy Cannon. And then Joe Burrow, he himself won the Heisman Trophy and a national championship in 2020. So now Joe Burrow is in the NFL, and the three teams that Joe Burrow defeated in the playoffs were the same three franchises that Billy Cannon played for during his NFL career. So they started out by beating the Raiders, and then they beat the Titans, who used to be the Houston Oilers, and of course the AFC title game against the Chiefs. This year's Super Bowl will be exactly 25 months after Joe Burrow won the college national championship. The name Cannon equals 25, and Billy Cannon died on May 20th, the date written 20/5. The name William Cannon and Billy Cannon both sum to 59, like Tiger. And remember, he was a legendary LSU Tiger. Cannon was even born 59 years before this legendary Tiger, Joe Burrow, who now even plays for the Tiger team in the NFL. Notice how their birthdays are separated by 130 days. That's the value of LSU Tigers, 130. Burrow won the title on the 13th day of the year. This year, 2022, is the NFL's 103rd season of existence, Joe Burrow will be 1,313 weeks old for the Super Bowl. His head coach, Zach Taylor, born on the 130th day of the year, with birth numerology of 117, which connects to 13. But think about the name Cannon. The word canon is a homonym with the word canon with one N. And when we talk about canon, often we're talking about the canon of the kings, which is connected to astronomy. Ancient astronomers using this to calculate the date of eclipses. And currently, we use the 5 millennium canon of solar eclipses. So when you think about the name Billy Cannon, no doubt there's an eclipse riddle. And how about the fact that Billy Cannon died a span of 13 months and 13 days before the next total solar eclipse? In 2020, I made a post about the death of a man named Orlando McDaniel. And he was 59 years old. He was a former LSU Tiger. Again, Tiger equals 59. Cannon and Burrow born 59 years apart. Now, what are the odds that just one day after Joe Burrow made it to the Super Bowl, the Raiders hired a man named Josh McDaniels? And the Raiders, of course, one of the franchises that Billy Cannon played for. So that's strange enough, right? McDaniels, all connected to the death of this McDaniel. Orlando McDaniel, former LSU Tiger, dying shortly after the championship. So you might say, okay, well, the name McDaniel is not the same as McDaniels. But how about the fact that just a few days later, we got the hiring of another coach in the NFL named McDaniel. Mike McDaniel getting hired by the Dolphins. And check out how the Dolphins equals 130. Mike McDaniel is the 13th coach in the history of the Miami Dolphins. And look at his initials, MM. M is, of course, the 13th letter. And he even came over from the San Francisco 49ers, which sums to 1313 in Gematria. And, of course, the 49ers logo, the digits 4 and 9, you add these up, it sums to 13. Mike McDaniel will now be coaching Tua Tagovailoa. And look at how the name Tagovailoa equals 103, like 13. Tagovailoa wore number 13 when he went to Alabama, which equals 13. When you write out 13, it equals 99. That's the only number to sum to 99. The name Mike McDaniel equals 99. And now he's going to coach for Miami, which equals 99. And think about how Miami just fired their head coach, Brian Francisco Flores, whose name sums to 99. In Jewish gematria, 13 equals 347, and Mike McDaniel was hired 347 days after Brian Flores' birthday. Again, Flores is the head coach that's making big waves in the NFL because he's suing for allegations of racism. Notice how Mike McDaniel has birth numerology of 30 and 111. Now he's the new Dolphin head coach. Dolphin equals 30 and 111. But Dolphin also equals 231 in English. And look how old he was when the Dolphins hired him. 2,031 weeks old. Miami Dolphins also equals 360 in Jewish gematria. And check out his birthday, March 6th, written 3/6. Miami, Florida even equals 65. And March 6th is the 65th day of the year. So what a great guy to go coach the Miami Dolphins and be their 13th head coach. So this connects also to Josh McDaniels, who left New England to go to Las Vegas. So 13 equals 99, 45, and 45. Those are the same as New England, the team that McDaniels left. And look how old McDaniels was when Las Vegas hired him on the date 131. He was 45 years, 9 months, and 9 days old. Looking back at the name Billy Cannon, so there's one team in the NFL that fires cannons at its stadium. That would be the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And consider how just after Burrow made the Super Bowl, Tom Brady retired. And this is a little bit of like a symbolic passing of the torch. Joe Burrow's season this year, very similar to Tom Brady's. Now, Tom Brady entered the league with a little less fanfare, but both are making big splash runs to the Super Bowl very early on in their careers. Now, check out how Billy Cannon was born on August 3rd, which is the same birthday as Tom Brady. That date written 8/3 like the word football, 83. Billy Cannon was born exactly 480 months before Tom Brady. His birthday is also 4 months and 8 days before Joe Burrow's. He died 408 days before the next total eclipse. The 48th prime is 223, a major moon number, 223 synodic months in the Saros cycle. But look at how that number connects to Tom Brady's full name in Gematria, double 223. Oh, there's a lot more I don't want to dig into that you can check the post for. But this player, Orlando McDaniel, who died, it was like halfway between the time that Burrow won the title and then was drafted into the NFL. The name Orlando McDaniel has the same 140 gematria as William Cannon. And William Cannon died on the 140th day of the year. McDaniel also died 97 weeks after Cannon, which is the value of Burrow and Orgeron, who was his head coach at the time. So the passing of Orlando McDaniel, we've now discovered, is connected to this year's Super Bowl. But I wanted to take a look at another player from the NFL who died not that long ago, which is also connected to this year's game. Back in 2019, running back Cedric Benson passed away after he and a passenger struck a car on their motorcycle. And I did a post on that back in 2019, and this was heavily by the numbers. It was on the date the 17th of August, or 17/8, and motorcycle crash equals 178. I also think it's interesting that I pointed out a strong Saturn riddle in that death. And as I've been saying for several weeks, this year's Super Bowl is heavily connected to Saturn. So let's dig a little bit deeper. Now, Benson died on this roadway, Ranch to Market Road 2222. And the Super Bowl that was held right after this was on the date 2222. Now, this year's game is in the year 2022. Notice how Cedric Benson's full name sums to 263, which is the 56th prime number. And now his former team, the Bengals, whom he rushed over 4,000 yards for, is playing in Super Bowl 56. Notice how Cincinnati Bengals equals 156 in Gematria. Next week, will we be saying that the Cincinnati Bengals won 56? Maybe. The 156th prime number is 911. And measuring from Cedric Benson's death to Super Bowl 56 was 911 days. He died on a motorcycle, which equals 1191, at the age of 1911 weeks. Ritual human sacrifice and total eclipse, both summing to 911 in Gematria. Cedric Benson died 1 year and 119 days before the next total eclipse. That's also 485 days. Bengal tiger equals 485, so does human sacrifice. Now, the name Cedric Benson has remarkable overlap with the word eclipse. See how the name Benson equals 69, which matches eclipse in ordinal. The name Cedric equals 1, 20, 33, and 39, which are the other three values. But to go along with this 69, his passenger was named Amna Najam, whose name summed to 69. And consider how Bengal tigers are primarily found on the Indian subcontinent, and here Cedric's passenger was Indian. This year's Super Bowl even falls exactly 609 days before an annular eclipse that occurs over the United States. Think about how Saturn also sums to 69 in Gematria. Saturn sums to 741 in English Extended. This is the same as motorcycle, which is part of the reason I pointed this whole Saturn connection out earlier. His passenger was a doctor of audiology, which equals 741. And I also noticed that Cedric's birthday was December 28th, which is the same date that John Madden died this past year. Now, John Madden's death was a significant tribute or riddle connected to Mercury. And the big Mercury riddle with John Madden is that he died the same day as Senator Harry Reid. And Senator Harry Reid had the Las Vegas airport named after him just like 2 weeks before he died. And John Madden never flew in an airplane. He would always drive in a bus around the country. And, of course, Madden used to be the coach of the Raiders, who now play in Las Vegas. So, no doubt about it, this death of Cedric Benson was connected to the Super Bowl this year. And again, what I believe is a win, but all predictions wrong or your money back. Speaking of the Super Bowl, we got a news story yesterday telling us that Snoop Dogg purchased Death Row Records, which has been defunct for, I think, about 15 years. But in the week leading up to the Super Bowl, which features Snoop Dogg, Dr. Dre, and all the original Death Row acts, he's trying to revive the label, right? So probably a little bit of strategy here, as you know, the timing is really good for this story. But I wanted to talk about why the date February 10th was chosen to make this announcement. Now, for the record, Snoop Dogg is like one of my favorite people right now. For anybody who has been watching the coverage of the Olympics on NBC, Snoop Dogg teamed up with Kevin Hart for the Summer Games to break down the Olympics and stuff, and it's just hilarious. And I'm waiting for them to do some bits on the Winter Olympics, which unfortunately I haven't seen yet. But seriously, one of the best comedy duos of all time. Anyway, Snoop Dogg's announcement came on the 41st day of the year. And this is a really important number to Snoop Dogg, whose name equals 41 with exceptions. Death Row equals 41 in reverse reduction. And Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg will be performing at the Super Bowl this year. Super Bowl equals 41. Snoop Dogg's original debut album was called Doggy Style, which is 41. Snoop Dogg's real name is Kelvin Broadus. And in the reverse alphabetic order, this sums to 210. The date of Snoop's announcement yesterday was February 10th, or 2/10. He was even born on the 20th day of the 10th month, October 20th, 2010, kind of like these digits. Now this represents the number 21, and Snoop Dogg turned 21 in the year 92. And 92 is the year that Death Row Records was founded. 1992. Snoop's deal was actually finalized the day before, which was the date written 9/2 internationally, the 9th of February. And in Gematria, Death Row Records sums to 229. Now, 229 is a prime number, the 50th prime number. And 50 is the value of Death Row with exceptions. Notice how Super Bowl equals 50 and 112. On the date that he bought the label, Snoop Dogg was 50 years and 112 days old. And the name Snoop Dogg equals 112. His purchase was on a date with 17 numerology. That's rap and reduction is 17. And you got to appreciate that Death Row was originally founded on 225. And in English Gematria, 225 is the value of hip-hop. One last thing I wanted to decode here was the release of a film that came out last week called Moonfall. And I'm not going to do too deep of a deep dive here, but there's a very clear riddle with the date that this movie came out that I wanted to make sure everybody saw. Moonfall was released on February 4th of 2022. Now, first of all, this is a date with numerology of 48. 48 is the gematria of Luna, which is the Latin name for the moon. And, of course, the 48th prime number is 223, which is the moon in Hebrew gematria. There's also 223 lunar phases in the Saros, which allows us to predict the next eclipse. But this date, 2/4/22, is actually hilarious. Currently, we're in a very significant time in the United States, obviously, with everything that's going on with CV-19 and all these insane draconian measures that the government's trying to impose on us. Well, the virus is called corona. And corona is really just the word used for the atmosphere of the sun, which can only be seen during a total solar eclipse. And it just so happened that this virus started between these two significant solar eclipses, which create an X over the heart of the United States. These two solar eclipses are exactly 2,422 days apart. And now we have a movie about the moon falling in, becoming really large, covering the sun, on the date 2/4/22. Now, the number 2422 is 1211 times 2. Now, remember last year on the date 1211, we had a huge tragedy right at the midway point of these two eclipses, right at the intersection point. And this was in a city called Mayfield. Think about how the Browns and Baker Mayfield instantly started to tank right after this event. And here we go again, 24-22, right? Moonfall was written and directed by a man named Roland Emmerich. And the release of this film falls 280 days before Emmerich's 67th birthday. Total solar eclipse sums to 280 in Hebrew and 67 in English reduction. Now, of course, a very significant number to the moon is 13. The moon has the same gematria as 13, and there's 13 lunar phases every couple years. Moon begins with M, the 13th letter. It ends with N, the 13th letter in reverse. And would you believe this movie is exactly 130 minutes long? And think about how the word fall equals 13 and 31. And for those of you who follow my work, you know that the number 1331 is like the ultimate eclipse number. And I have a whole post explaining how 1331 literally represents a solar eclipse. No doubt about that one. Now, I thought it was interesting. If you measure from the moon landing to the date of this release of this film is 19,192 days. And this is very similar to the gematria of 1,331 and eclipse, right? 1,331, the ultimate eclipse number. This movie about a moon which permanently eclipses the sun. Ugh. It's so funny. Now, this 1331 riddle is really cool because there's only three numbers that sum to 1331. One is 133, which is the first three digits, right? And then you have 331, which is the last three digits. And then they merge like an eclipse into 1331. Well, the only other number that has this gematria is 393. 393, summing to 1331. This connects us to the Metonic cycle, Ania Deca Ateris, 19 years, summing to 393. Here in the United States, we have a president, which I know this is a loose connection, but he's surrounded by the Senate. I think senator is 366 days of the year. This is a blog post on its own. But the reason I point this out is because if you measure from Roland Emmerich's birthday to the birthday of lead actress Halle Berry, you get 3,930 days. Halle Berry's full name sums to 148, which I thought was pretty interesting because she was born on the 14th of August, or 14/8. Her full name in Sumerian is 888, and her birthday has numerology of 88. In ordinal, moonfall equals 88, which is a number connected to the movement of the sun and moon in the sky. Pi is 3.14, which also equals 888. And check out how Roland Emmerich was born on the 314th day of the year. Pi also sums to 95 and 76, numbers found in Emmerich's birth numerology. There's certainly more to uncover here, but really the fact that this was released on 2/4/22 is all you need to know to understand that Hollywood and the wealthy elite that give us our entertainment, which includes the news, all coded by the numbers. They love their astronomy, they love their astrology, but man, did they love their numerology. Ooh, Halle Berry turning 666 months old on Valentine's Day. That's pretty cool. Valentine's Day coming up here in just 3 days. Hope all you couples out there have something planned and remaining happy through these tumultuous times. But yeah, it looks like a little bit light here today. Again, it was kind of an impromptu stream, so thanks again for everybody who jumped in. We'll do a strictly a live chat, a live decoding session maybe pretty soon, so we can involve the chat a little more and maybe give a little more notice as well. So thanks to everybody who popped in. As always, peace, love, God bless, and we'll talk to you next time. See ya.